This is Linda Cohn from ESPN, and you're listening to the ML Sports Platter.
It's the ML Sports Platter, all over the major platforms like Spotify, Google, Apple, Stitcher, Deezer, and more. Go ahead and download, subscribe, leave feedback, and a 5-star review. We are brought to you by Brian Cowboy of Mass Mutual in New York State, Liverpool Physical Therapy, and our great friends at Stanley Law Offices. Together, they'll work to get you the maximum award. StanleyLawOffices.com and on social media for more. Well, look, Collin Morikawa has just absolutely taken golf by storm. The numbers are insane. The two major wins now at this particular point. And the ceiling, I mean, honestly, it could be as high as being the greatest champion ever. But we got a little bit of time for that. We know when Tiger Woods was supposed to blow away the competition in that department, things happened, and now he'll never surpass Jack Nicklaus. But either way, Collin Morikawa at the age of 24 years old, put it this way, he is right now on pace to do amazing things historically. Let's talk about it right now with a guy who's been around the business for a long time, somebody I've watched and respected and followed for a long time, going back to his WKBW TV days, his Niagara Gazette writing days as a sports editor and columnist, and is just terrific at what he does. Amazing writer. He is the managing editor of Golfweek. He's a golf coordinator for the USA Today Network. It is Tim Schmidtt. Timmy, how are you, buddy? It's been a long time.
No problem. Great to talk to you, man. It has been an awful long time, and I miss being back in upstate in central New York, and so it's great to talk to you. I am actually here for a few weeks visiting some family, and typically I live down in Texas, so this is great.
Well, when I get done, I'll have to text you, and we'll see if we can maybe squeeze in 18 somewhere before you leave.
That wouldn't be the worst thing, right? Exactly.
All right, Collin Morikawa. He now has started. He's played in 50 tournament events. He's won 5. He's played in 8 majors. He's won 2. He's 24 years old, and he also debuted in 2 majors and won those, and that's never happened in the history of the game. So, 2-part question here. When you see his game, what stands out the most? A lot of times you hear, the words ball striking, and what the heck is this guy's ceiling?
Yeah. So the crazy part about this is no fluke, folks. This is a guy who, if you remember, the very first event back after the pandemic was the Charles Schwab Challenge, in Fort Worth, Texas. I happened to be there, and he was leading on the 18th hole. He missed a putt that would have sent it to a playoff. Daniel Berger ended up winning. This is a guy who could have even won a couple other times already so in other words, this isn't Eli Manning who got the two Super Bowls and went 8-8 the rest of his career. This is a guy who has already proven he is a step above 95% of the golfers on the PGA Tour. And the key to his game is really his iron play. Nobody strikes the irons the way that Collin Morikawa does. And to put this in perspective, and I will tell you, Mike, I am not often right, so I have to tout myself when I am. Last week on a podcast, or before the British Open on a podcast, I said that the key stat this last week at Royal St. George's, because it's a short course, it was a course that had only 2 holes of longer than 500 yards, only 2 par 5s, that the premium and the stat that was going to be the key was going to be strokes gained approaching the green. Okay, so when you look at, PGA Tour stats, like many other pro sports, the margin is so slim when you talk about number 1 and number 2, or number 2 and number 6, or and a lot of sports, when you look at these things, the percentages are just tiny. Yeah, one guy is ranked first in something, but the guy who's, 15th is actually pretty close to him. That is not the case with strokes gained approaching the green. If you look at the PGA Tour stat site, And you look at where everybody else ranks, they are miles behind. As a matter of fact, Morikawa's average in strokes gained approaching the green is 1.502. The next highest is Paul Casey at 907, 0.907.
Wow.
The next after that's Russell Henley at 0.901. And they all bunch up after that. Collin Morikawa is far and away the best iron striker on tour right now. And when the courses line up for him, as they did this last week at the British Open, it doesn't matter if this guy is from the West Coast. It doesn't matter. People say, I don't know, he plays a West Coast style of game. Listen, man, if it comes down to irons, you take Collin Morikawa almost every time.
No doubt. And, we've fallen into this before where guys win quickly, right, when they're young. Because they're young, they're good, they arrive, and it's just... Here I am, and it's like the Superman cape is out. Spieth, 3 of them. Rory, Brooks Koepka wins a bunch right in a row. Guy by the name of Tiger Woods, we basically cemented him as blowing away Jack Nicklaus's record, and all of a sudden some things happened personally, and now he'll never surpass Jack. In fact, he may never play golf again. So it's dangerous to kind of project, well, he's got 2 at 24. It doesn't work like that. Sports, every single tournament's different. Injuries can happen. Things happen. Look at the slump Rory is in. But Morikawa does seem to be a guy who, from what you've described, from what you and I and golf fans everywhere have seen, a guy who does have sustainability, right? This is not a Ben Curtis. This is not a Todd Hamilton. This is not a Michael Campbell. It's not a Sean McKeel. It's not one of those type deals, maybe even a Mike Weir. I mean, this guy could probably end up at least, without getting carried away, 5, 6, 7-ish majors is very realistic at the very minimum.
Again, you bring up 2 really important points here. I mean, injuries and personal stuff can always derail anyone. He seems to be a guy who truly has his head firmly on his shoulders, and so I don't think that that's the kind of thing that would derail someone like him. But an injury could certainly do that. Anything that's minor throws someone's game off, and it takes just a tiny little bit of confidence loss, and you see what happens with a lot of these players. And Jordan Spieth is the ultimate example of that in terms of his confidence. Now here he is again. I mean, He's fun to watch again. He's back to being the guy that we knew, and he hasn't broken through at the majors, but man, he's been right in the thick of it every week for about 6 months now, which has just been fun to watch. I do think the other difference is this. When you look back at even Tiger, when Tiger started, the fields were good. Of course, there were a lot of good players. When you look back to Jack, there were a lot of good players. Man, every year there is a new Will Zalatoris who steps out of the field and, is 21 or 22 years old and has incredible skills. And by the way, the way that they groom these guys now, they're playing, high-level amateur golf starting at 12 years old, 10 years old. I jokingly, I pick on an old colleague of ours, Jay Skursky here, who covers the Buffalo Bills for the Buffalo News. His son is 4 or 5 years old and is already like a championship golfer. He's going to some national event in Orlando next week.
Wow.
Think about that. I mean, when I was growing up and playing Brighton and Sheridan Park in the town of Tonawanda, nobody was talking about taking us to national tournaments. So just the pedigree that these guys have coming in, the fields aren't going to get easier moving along. They're going to get better. And speaking of Will Zalatoris, by the way, I brought up the the strokes gained approaching the green stat.
Mm-hmm.
He's 6th in that right now on tour. He doesn't even have a full card yet, Will Zalatoris.
Wow.
So there are going to be better players consistently coming down the pipeline, or not better players, but really good players. So while I think that Collin Morikawa is doing something that is certainly not a fluke by any stretch of the imagination, look, there's a lot of good players that are going to be coming along, and everybody can't win a major. There's only 4 of them each year. So to say how many he's going to win, that's going to be tough. He should be in the thick of it, though, for years to come.
I'm wondering, in the time you've covered golf, played golf, been a golf fan, where this year ranks, in your lifetime as far as excitement with the majors. I mean, I think this year was spectacular. I mean, Hideki Matsuyama, first Japanese player to win a major, he wins the Masters. That's going to have global ramifications for years, I think. Same thing with Jon Rahm, the first Spaniard to win the U.S. Open. Now we have Morikawa coming on the scene. He's making history. He's super young at 24. And oh, by the way, a 51 or a 50-year-old, I should say, won it. You're now 51, and Phil Mickelson winning the PGA at a course that most people thought was going to eat him alive, and rightfully so. At Kiowa, this is one of the great years, I think, for us, right, in golf, Tim.
Well, it's not just, it's been, again, going back, I think that one of the few beneficiaries of the pandemic was the world of golf, and people have come back out to play the game in record numbers again. The enthusiasm around the game has been as high as it's ever been. We've happened to have a good stretch of major champions, but I just feel like there's an excitement around the game in general that there wasn't before. There was definitely some, but it's stepped up for sure post-pandemic, and part of that is, the funniest part about golf is it already was and you've covered a million sporting events. It's, you go to a football game, you go to a hockey game, you go to a basketball game, for crying out loud. You can see every player's emotion, especially on a basketball court. When you go to a golf tournament, it's so spread out that it's everything's so unique in the kind of singular aspect of guys walking alone and being alone, that when it translated well on television right away, even when there were no fans at some of these major events, it still worked. And I feel like the momentum has kind of maintained through all this, and it really helps to build this thing. There's more media spotlight on it than there's ever been. And that ramps up guys like Phil Mickelson, where this isn't just trying to win at the whatever tournament in North Carolina one week. This is something that he now knows is leading off SportsCenter in many cases again for the first time in decades. And so I think the players sense the what's going on around the game as well. And it's just like playing in front of 80,000 or 75,000 and when the Bills come home and the crowds are back. I feel like they realize that the intensity is back on the game, and the players have stepped up their game just to kind of go alongside of it.
Golfweek, USA Today Network. Tim Schmidtt with us talking some golf. Facebook cover photo. What course is that? That is that's a hole. Holy cow!
So are you ready for now? You remember? Here we are hanging out in Sabres and Bills press boxes back in the day, and now here I am about 2 months ago as part of a USGA trip for the media. I left my home in Austin, Texas on a Sunday, flew into San Francisco, and on Monday played the Olympic Club, which is where they held the U.S. Women's Open, and we met Michelle Wee and a bunch of other folks, and got to play, by the way, 18 holes. That night, we, a group of media members flew down to San Diego, and then we woke up the next morning and played Torrey Pines.
Stop it!
And in fact, my foursome was Rex Hoggard from the Golf Channel,
sure,
and Mike Wan, who is now the USGA CEO.
No kidding.
So yeah, it's been a pretty fun stretch for me. I haven't played a ton of golf, but when I have played, I've played some great golf courses. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I got to do since I'm back here in Western New York is the Porter Cup Media Day was up at Niagara Falls Country Club last week, and I got to be part of that. So as I joke, I've only played golf about 6 times in the last 2 months, but every single one of them has been like a primo track.
Yeah, I heard Niagara Country Club's a diamond in the rough. I mean, just a tremendous course. And I mean, are these courses? You don't have to, announce scores here. I would never announce mine, probably. But what are they doing to you? Are you eating? Are they eating you up? Are you hanging in there? I probably one of the toughest courses I played was Oak Hill in Rochester years ago, and it's just you walk on these places, you just feel different. You know what I mean by that. And but are you able to kind of hang in from? I'm assuming you're playing the white tees.
I think I've been in the 80s and every
that's great. Great scores.
Yeah. Which that's I always tell people, for me a good day is great days in the 70s, bad days in the 90s. But yeah, I've been in the 80s and hung tough on just about every one of them. I will say, it's funny you say that. I played Oak Hill as part of a senior PGA Championship Media Day, again with Jay Skursky, probably in 04 or something like that. And that's a really great golf course. But the one thing that you notice that's such a difference is when you play these places, when you go out to your local municipal golf course, and I love Muni Golf. As a matter of fact, did a big series of stories for Golfweek about 2 months ago in advance of the Torrey Pines event at the U.S. Open at Torrey Pines, because it's a municipal golf course, and unfortunately there are no more municipal golf courses on the major schedule for the foreseeable future, which is kind of a bummer. But when you go out to your average Muni course, you can make a mistake. And I'm not saying you can make a horrible mistake, but there's a lot of times where you can either, your shot off the tee isn't great.
You can spray it and still get a bogey.
Yeah, you spray exactly. Yep. Where, man, that's not the case with these courses. You play that Olympic Club course. Torrey Pines is difficult. It's breathtaking, but it's difficult. It's not the toughest of the ones I've played. But man, the Olympic Club in San Francisco was just, you make a mistake and you're
dead.
You're on the wrong side of trees, and you're on the wrong side of hills, and you're looking at the bay in San Francisco, and you're not supposed to be. It can be so tough, and a lot of these courses are just that way. You make a mistake, and it really is going to cost you, and that's what makes it so tremendous to see what these guys do. I followed. I talked about the Charles Schwab at Colonial this year. It was Jason Kokrak ended up winning it, but I went up and covered that and followed Jordan Spieth on Sunday. And to watch him spray just a little bit, I mean, he doesn't miss by a ton, but he does. He's not the most accurate driver, and he's always taking chances. But then to see what he gets himself out of, and when I followed him that day, the respect I have for basically the way that these guys dig themselves out is just incredible. It really is. Where you and I, we're chipping back into the fairway and hoping to make double. These guys are still trying to put the ball on the green or close and still maybe make birdie, or par at worst. And that's crazy to me.
Golf is so hard. It just is for no matter what your level is. I mean, you could be a 25, 30 handicap. You could be Collin Morikawa. Everything in between is so hard when you think about the things that can go wrong in a swing and the game and the elements and the course conditions and the differences in greens. If you play 2-3 times a week at different courses, it's all different, right? And the pros are robots, and that's what it's so impressive. These guys they're machines, and they can play all these places. I've still never figured out how they can go to a course in the beginning of a week, especially major play, and have a couple practice rounds, and then just walk up to a fourth hole, be like, oh, remember this on Tuesday? Oh, and they already know exactly, like, to the foot where they're supposed to hit the ball, and then they do it. It's absurd. I remember Tom Watson, there was a quote, and I'm paraphrasing, in the Joe Posnanski book, The Secret of Golf. It was a story of Watson and Nicklaus. Great book. And Watson said something to the tune of, hey, don't get mad. Try not to get mad at golf. Golf's hard, and this was the big one. You're going to hit bad shots.
Right. Well, and I think that's the key for your average player is keeping the passion around the game, but yet just enjoying the experience no matter what. If I would have shot 105 at Torrey Pines, which I didn't, and I was lucky enough not to, but if I would have, it still would have been one of the best days of my life. It's something that as a kid growing up in Tonawanda, New York, I never would have imagined being able to do. So to keep that in perspective, I think is so key. And by the way, the other key thing, if you ask me, is to take advantage of the great courses that you have locally. I call this the Disney theory. I mean, everybody wants to go to Disney, but in reality, there's only so many people that can get onto Pebble Beach. So what's the great course near you? I mean, I think about Turning Stone is ranked on our list of, best courses you can play in New York. I think it's the third best course in New York.
Yeah, really, all three of them get up there in the rankings. I mean, Goluyac, Shenandoah, and Atunio, it's the PGA Champ course. I tell you what, I played Seven Oaks a couple of weeks ago. Front nine carved me to pieces. Played about bogey golf on the back. But, it had some of that, Tim, that sneaky rough where you hit it a little bit off. You're like, oh, it's not that bad. And then you go and hit it, and the club is just stuck. I mean, it just grabs it. And then, of course, can't hit the GIR. Then you're in the rough again. You got to chip up. And the greens were brutal as well. You can't be on top. And you end up... I 3-putted from, I think, 12 feet below the hole because the greens, I had no idea what to do. But yeah, the bet, and I played Ravenwood for the first time a few weeks ago in Rochester too. So I agree with you. I think that's a key thing. Like, if you can't get out and travel, you can't go international a lot. You can't, take that Ireland trip or the Bandon Dunes trip and just go, or Pinehurst. Go find your 5 to 7, 8 best courses and go get them done in a year,
Exactly. Split it up, get your buddies together. It's something that you can do over the course of a year.
If you're allowed to play, yeah.
But. Right, if you're allowed to play. And say, hey, every other month we're going to do this. We're going to spend the night. We're going to go do this.
Yeah.
We're going to go to Cooperstown and play leather stocking.
Sure.
Or we're going to go, wherever and have fun. And at the end of it, you're going to have some really incredible memories from the whole thing. So.
Couple more for Tim Schmidtt. Does a great job covering the game of golf, managing editor of Golfweek, golf coordinator, of course, for the USA Today Network here on the ML Sports Platter, brought to you by Bryant and Stratton College and Liverpool Physical Therapy. Bryson DeChambeau obviously ruffles feathers. There's no doubt. He gets under guys' skin. Him and Koepka have got the rivalry going back and forth. Apparently, Justin Thomas is getting involved on Instagram. Listen, he drives people crazy. How crazy do you think he's driving the PGA Tour and golf fans? But hey, I'm all in on it because I think it's great for the game.
Yeah, I think behind the scenes, the PGA Tour folks love this.
Yep.
He's not a villain per se like Patrick Reed, but he's certainly someone who stirs the pot. I actually said this recently to a couple friends. I don't think Bryson's genuinely a bad guy. I think he's immature. I think he's someone who, and by that maybe even not horribly immature as a person overall. I just think like his body. This wasn't who he was as a 20-year-old. He's suddenly kind of transformed himself, and I don't know that mentally he ever caught up to it. He's kind of, there's a kid, we all knew a kid in ninth grade who was 5 feet tall, and then by the end of our senior years was one of the bigger, stronger kids in school, and he never really knew what to do with his body yet. He was still kind of figuring out how to maneuver himself, and that's Bryson. Where I think Brooks is much more controlled and understands what he's doing. I think Bryson is just kind of immature and does whatever he says and thinks, and is still finding his way. But the people behind the scenes love this. I don't think there's any doubt about it. I think that what he's doing for the game of golf is super important, and by that I mean, our mantra at Golfweek is for serious golfers, and I love the people who are hardcore readers for sure, but opening the funnel to more people who will enjoy the game of golf is really important to me, and I think that Bryson's stirring up controversy and just being that guy who's, we're all trying to figure out what he's doing with this swing and what he's tinkering with, and now he's yelling at his club maker, and, it's great drama, and where it's really great to see guys like, Carlos Ortiz or Jason Kokrak or other middle-of-the-road players win PGA tournaments. Let's not kid ourselves. You and I aren't turning on the Marlins and the Rockies on a Monday night, but the Yankees-Red Sox we're watching every single time, and that's what Bryson is. He has got that it factor that gets people excited to watch, and when he's in the hunt, whether you love him, whether you hate him, he's definitely polarizing, but he's someone who's going to bring in eyeballs and bring in attention and make it exciting. Just make the whole thing more exciting, and I think that the people behind the scenes love it. I will tell you something very, very interesting. And for folks who didn't follow this last week, basically Bryson yelled and said that his driver sucked. He's a Cobra, been sponsored by Cobra for years. Then in Golfweek, our equipment reporter got a great scoop. The Cobra rep who works with Bryson and who actually caddied for him a few weeks ago, came back and said sometimes he's like dealing with an 8-year-old, and you have to know that he doesn't really hate you when he says he hates you. And this led to a whole big hullabaloo about whether Bryson hates Cobra and whether Cobra hates Bryson and blah blah blah. I spoke with someone recently who said that the day following that was Cobra's second highest e-commerce day in the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. So, you tell me if Cobra hates the fact that they brought him up and they said something, and then he came back and said, I'm sorry, he apologized, but it got their name out there.
That's it.
And just like the PGA Tour, I think they feel the same way.
Yeah, in a world where, TaylorMade, Titleist, Callaway, all the Ping, those companies are the ones really dominating. Cobra kind of falls behind. So I thought it was a good thing. And you know what? Even if they get pissed off, what do you need? Well, here's a new driver. You like this? Once you get a driver he likes because he's such a psycho, he'll talk about that in a positive way. You get the best of both worlds. Let's set up the last couple of minutes I have with you, Tim.
Sure.
We got some stuff coming around the corner. I mean, the majors are over, but the rest of this year is going to be great. I mean, you've got the FedEx Cup race. You've got the Ryder Cup. I think the World Golf is right around the corner here as well. A lot of big-time tournaments. Just set it up for my listeners here, what you're looking for, and take it away.
And don't forget the Olympics.
And the Olympics.
There's a whole bunch
Good
of
point.
folks who will be at the Olympics in a couple of weeks, and that's going to be actually starting in 10 days.
Yeah, Morikawa being one of them. Yep.
Yeah, and that's difficult for us because covering it when it's around the globe is going to be really mind numbing. But yeah, the Memphis WGC event, which is the FedEx St. Jude in Memphis, is one of the best. And for people who don't know, the reason why those World Golf Championships events are such a big deal is there's no cuts. So every top player, and the purses are huge. Sure. So what that means is all the best players in the world are always going to play because they know that they're going to make a bunch of money for showing up. And there's only 4 WGC events. So that Memphis event is a big one. That's right after the Olympics. Then you start to go into the FedEx Cup playoffs, which, is always a really interesting time, I think. But the key is the Ryder Cup, which if you look right now at the official World Golf ranking, 8 of the top 10 players in the world are Americans, and the Americans have had their rear ends handed to them in a number of the recent Ryder Cups. The pressure has to be mounting here. We've got the best players. It would be like if the Dream Team lost consistently in the Olympics playing basketball. I mean, you've got the best players in the world on the American team, and they're not getting results. I think there's going to be a little more pressure, and I think you're going to sense it from the American players at Whistling Straits. Also, just a quick note, Whistling Straits Golf Course in Wisconsin, just one of the most stunning pieces of property you're ever going to see. And if you ever get a chance to go play that one, please do so. But yeah, I mean, what a backdrop for this pressure-packed, great way to end the season. And it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a great finish to the season. Like you said, even though the majors are done, there's still a lot of really good golf to watch.
Tim Schmidtt, Golfweek, USA Today Network, been in the media world for quite a while. Respect you so much, man. You've done such awesome work through the years. And, man, I haven't seen you in so long. I think when I was a student at Bonaventure and I was interning at Empire, and then I think shortly after that a couple of times. But there's 2 famous people who I know come from Tonawanda, New York, and it's Tim Schmidtt and Bill Hoppe. So thanks for coming on, Tim. I appreciate you, buddy.
Anytime I can be in that category with Bill Hoppe, I'm eager to do so. Always good to talk to you, buddy.
And the ML Sports Platter is brought to you by Prestwick Golf, Welch & Company Jewelers, Sit Means Sit Syracuse, and Brian Comboy of Mass Mutual New York State. Tax-efficient retirement planning. It's essential, and Brian can take care of you right now. Go ahead and visit his website, advisors.massmutual.com. He's also on Facebook and LinkedIn, Brian Comboy. Mass Mutual New York State, the official financial advisor of the ML Sports Platter. Thanks so much again to Tim Schmidtt for talking some golf. What a year it's been, and I think the rest of the year is going to be pretty amazing as well. Make sure you go follow Tim's stuff at Golfweek and USA Today Network. I'm Mike Lindsley. Hit me on Twitter at Mike L Sports. And as I always tell you, enjoy the games.